Glass is a rigid, non-crystalline solid. It does not bend. It does not yield to pressure. When the limits of its tensile strength are exceeded, it violently shatters. Modern industrial logistics treat large-format glass with extreme prejudice. Today, we transport architectural glass on specialized air-ride suspension trucks. We secure the panes with vacuum-sealed hydraulic suction cups. We cushion the edges with high-density synthetic polymers and neoprene gaskets. Why? Because a single microscopic flaw or a single localized kinetic shock will cause a 3-meter pane to instantly and catastrophically fail. Yet, if we open the official 19th century historical ledger, we are told a logistical fairy tale. We are told that in the year 1851, a workforce of Victorian laborers somehow manufactured, transported, and installed nearly 300,000 panes of glass to build the Crystal Palace in London. They allegedly did this in just 5 months. Let us audit the logistics. Let us audit the mathematics of the supply chain. Let us audit the impossible reality of the glass matrix. To understand the sheer scale of this historical deception, we must first look at the official narrative of 19th century glass manufacturing. How exactly does one create 300,000 panes of clear, structural sheet glass in a world without automated thermal sensors or modern industrial extrusion technology? The accepted historical consensus credits the Chance Brothers Glassworks in Birmingham. According to the ledger, they utilized the cylinder-blown method. A human being with a blowpipe would gather a massive, glowing sphere of molten silica. By swinging this heavy, molten bubble over a deep trench, gravity would allegedly stretch it into a long, uniform cylinder. After cooling, the ends were cut off, the cylinder was sliced down the middle, reheated in a flattening oven, and manually pressed flat. We do not deny the existence of the cylinder method. We audit the volume and the velocity. 300,000 panes, 5 months. Let us do the math. To meet this impossible deadline, the Chance Brothers factory had to produce approximately 2,000 perfect panes of glass every single day. Human lungs are not industrial compressors. Human arms cannot swing 50 pounds of molten glass continuously with mathematically identical precision thousands of times a week. Glass requires temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius to melt. In the 1850s, they relied entirely on coal combustion. There were no digital thermostats. If the temperature in the furnace drops by even a fraction of a percent, the viscosity of the silica changes. The glass develops seeds, blisters, and cords. It becomes structurally compromised and shatters during the flattening phase. To produce 300,000 usable panes in 5 months requires a 0% failure rate. It requires thousands of workers functioning like a flawless, automated robotic assembly line, producing a perfect cylinder every few minutes, 24 hours a day, without a single drop in furnace temperature or human error. The human biology and the thermodynamics of 1851 cannot support this production ledger.
Let us grant the historians a mathematical miracle in the factory. Let us pretend they managed to manually blow and flatten millions of square feet of glass at an impossible velocity. Now comes the insurmountable problem: logistics. Mainstream historians will immediately point to the railway network of 1851. They will eagerly claim that the glass was safely and efficiently transported from Birmingham to London via the Great Western Railway. Let us grant them the trains. But steam locomotives do not deliver cargo directly onto the construction scaffolding inside Hyde Park. We must audit the final mile. The transfer from the London rail yard to the actual construction site relied entirely on the primary vehicle of the era, the horse-drawn cart. Look at the anatomical structure of a Victorian commercial cart. It is built from heavy timber and rigid iron. The wheels are massive wooden spokes bound by a thick, unforgiving iron hoop. There are no vulcanized rubber pneumatic tires. There are no hydraulic shock absorbers. There are no independent suspension system. And what are these unsprung, rigid iron wheels rolling over? They are not rolling over smooth, continuous asphalt. They are rolling over uneven cobblestones, staggered brick paving, and deeply rutted, hardened mud tracks. This is a mathematical audit of kinetic energy. When a wooden cart carrying a payload of heavy, rigid glass crates strikes a single raised cobblestone at 5 miles per hour, the kinetic shockwave travels instantaneously. It moves from the iron rim, up the dense oak spokes, through the solid iron axle, and straight into the wooden bed of the cart. Because there is no rubber to compress and absorb the impact, 100% of that brutal, high-frequency kinetic energy is transferred directly into the cargo. Glass has an extremely high Young's modulus. It has virtually no elasticity. When subjected to a sharp, localized kinetic shock, it cannot flex to dissipate the energy. The kinetic transfer violently breaks the atomic bonds of the silica structure. Microfractures form instantly, propagating through the pane at over 3,000 miles per hour. The glass shatters. The rail journey is irrelevant if the final mile destroys the payload. The official narrative requires us to believe that thousands of tons of fragile glass were manually unloaded from train cars, stacked onto unsprung wooden carts, and violently rattled through the chaotic potholed streets of London without catastrophic attrition. One mistake by a dockworker, one heavy drop of a crate, one severe cobblestone strike, the cargo is rendered into glass dust. The official ledger does not show a massive breakage rate. It shows flawless execution. The mathematics of kinetic impact completely obliterate the historical timeline.
The glass has miraculously arrived intact, defying the laws of kinetic transfer. Now we enter the third phase of the audit: installation. Imagine the Crystal Palace, a structure enclosing nearly 1 million square feet of space, built entirely with a skeleton of cast iron and a skin of glass. Look at the men in the historical drawings. They are wearing cloth caps and suspenders. They are climbing hundreds of feet into the air on flimsy, unsecured wooden ladders and rudimentary mechanical trolleys. How do you maneuver a massive, heavy, razor-sharp sheet of slippery glass at that altitude in a high wind? Today, we use automated, counterweighted cranes with complex vacuum suction arrays. In 1851, the official story claims they held it with their bare hands, utilizing basic ropes and wooden pulleys. A sudden gust of wind catching a broad sheet of glass at 30 meters high turns it into a lethal, unpredictable sail. It would snap wrists. It would sever limbs. Yet the casualty reports for these massive, high-altitude glass installations are suspiciously, almost mathematically, non-existent. But the ultimate catastrophic failure of the official narrative lies not in the lifting of the glass. It lies in the absolute, inescapable physics of thermodynamics.
The Crystal Palace was, effectively, a colossal greenhouse. Cast iron has a high coefficient of linear thermal expansion. Mainstream historians and architectural apologists will immediately attempt to defend the narrative here. They will point out that the architect, Joseph Paxton, was highly intelligent. They will eagerly state that the glass was not set directly into the iron frame. It was seated in wooden sash bars, which were then attached to the iron skeleton. Wood is flexible. It acts as a micro-buffer. We acknowledge the wood. Now let us audit the macro geometry. The Crystal Palace was 1,851 feet long. That is over half a kilometer of continuous, interconnected cast iron. Under a blazing London summer sun, The massive iron arches and structural trusses of the building absorb heat, expanding significantly in length and girth. At night, as the temperature drops, the iron rapidly cools and contracts. The entire metal skeleton of the building was constantly moving, shifting, and breathing. The thermal expansion of a continuous iron frame of that magnitude is not measured in microscopic millimeters. Over a span of 564 meters, the thermal shift is measured in tens of centimeters. A wooden sash bar can absorb a millimeter of friction. It cannot compensate for the macrogeometric shift of an entire building. Glass does not compress, it does not stretch. As the half-kilometer iron skeleton expanded and contracted by several inches every single day, the geometry of the entire grid warped. The angles shifted. The distance between the load-bearing columns changed. The rigid glass skin of the building would be subjected to immense accumulating structural tension. Modern architecture solves this massive thermal paradox with advanced expansion joints and elastomeric gaskets. We use highly engineered synthetic rubbers that allow massive sections of a building to float and move entirely independently of the glass panes. What did they have in 1851? The ledger claims they sealed the wooden sash bars with putty, a simple mixture of boiled linseed oil and chalk. Putty dries hard, it crystallizes, it has absolutely zero elasticity. If you build a structure a third of a mile long, subjected to the violent daily thermal expansion of cast iron, and cement the rigid panes into place with hardened chalk putty, the accumulated stress cannot escape. The building must warp, and the glass must violently shatter. The thermal expansion of the iron macrostructure would have torn the building apart from the inside out within a single year. Yet the historical record insists these massive structures stood proudly. The glass did not continuously shatter in a deafening cascade. The thermal expansion did not crush the panes, which means the official construction methods documented in the history books are a physical, kinetic, and thermodynamic impossibility.
We have audited the fabrication, the biological limits of human lung capacity, and the thermal instability of 19th century furnaces do not align with the rapid, flawless production of 300,000 panes. We have audited the logistics. The railway network cannot bypass the final mile. The kinetic reality of unsprung wooden carts on cobblestones destroys the fragile cargo before it ever reaches the site. We have audited the installation. Wooden sash bars cannot defeat the macrogeometric thermal expansion of a half-kilometer iron skeleton. The physics guarantee absolute structural failure. The mathematical conclusion is absolute. The 19th century civilization presented in our history books, a civilization of horse-drawn carts, manual glass blowing, and hardened chalk putty, did not build the glass matrix. They could not have. They found it. They inherited an infrastructure left behind by a prior, far more advanced civilization. A civilization that understood high-temperature automated casting, vibration-dampening logistics, and advanced elastomeric structural engineering. The official ledgers, the charming drawings of men with blowpipes and wooden wheels, they are cover stories. They are fabricated documents designed to explain away an inherited, highly advanced world that the 19th century inheritors barely understood. The physical evidence is all around us. It is built into the skylights of the old arcades and the shattered remnants of the grand conservatories. You just have to run the numbers. If you are ready to stop accepting the fairy tales of official history and start looking at the physics, join the audit. Subscribe to TitanMetrics. The ledger remains open.